Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. Former President Trump rallied supporters in New Jersey over the weekend, drawing tens of thousands in a historically Democratic state. We hear what he had to say to the crowd.
Dozens walk out in protest as comedian Jerry Seinfeld gives Duke's commencement address as other anti-Israel protests continue across the nation.
Israel fighting Hamas terrorists, regrouping in northern Gaza and moving deeper into Rafah. Israel's military says at least 300,000 people have left the crowded southern city in a temporary evacuation, the latest in the Israel-Hamas war.
A solar storm brings dazzling visuals of the northern lights to millions around the world. We look at some of the breathtaking video.
Workers at an Apple store in Maryland vote in favor of authorizing a strike. The host of NTD's Business Matters explains what the Retail Workers Union hopes to accomplish.
Employee loneliness, it's leading to avoidable days off, costing U.S. firms billions every year. Is there a way to reverse this? That starts with changes to company culture, according to an employee engagement specialist we spoke to.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters, here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Today is Monday, May 13th.
And some people out there in Wildwood were saying it was a little cold for Trump's rally, but it was much warmer than that January 2020 rally he had.
That's right. But some are also questioning, Trump's estimates last time of I think it was 100,000 plus that he said.
Yeah, Chung was saying that they had that much this time. We'll see.
Right. All right. It's being called one of the largest political rallies, though, in New Jersey history. Former President Trump's rally on Saturday drew tens of thousands to the beach town of Wildwood.
The crowd was significant since the state has for decades consistently voted for Democratic presidential candidates. NTD's Jack Bradley was in Wildwood, New Jersey.
In one of his biggest political rallies, Donald Trump held a rally right here in Wildwood, New Jersey. Now, Wildwood is a red area in the middle of a blue state. New Jersey has been blue for a while now, and Trump spoke about many things all up on stage, including inflation, electric vehicles, and immigration. Here's some highlights from that.
Jersey, we're going to win the state of New Jersey. In the past 3 years, the average New Jersey family has lost $23,381 to the inflation tax. Bacon is up 79%, bacon. That's why I don't have bacon anymore, it's too expensive.
The Trump tax cuts helped the middle class more than it did the rich people. We have a very progressive tax code. The rich people already pay way more than their, quote, fair share.
I mean, look at the housing market right now. Young people want to buy homes and they can't afford to. President Trump bringing his policies, his sound economic policies back into the White House is what people want.
We want to be able to feed our families. We want to be able to keep them safe. We want to be able to go out and exercise on our own without the fear of being brutally murdered.
Nobody wants to live in a place where they can't walk the streets at night. You recently had a woman strangled from behind, pulled between two cars up in the Bronx and raped. Like, this kind of stuff we've never seen. We haven't seen this kind of stuff in 30 years.
In 2020, Trump lost to Biden by 16 percentage points here in New Jersey. Now, this comes amid Trump's New York hush money case, where Michael Cohen, his former lawyer, is expected to testify on Monday. The validity of his testimony will come into question as he's been convicted of lying under oath already. Trump has repeatedly said that he would debate Biden anytime, anywhere, any place, and he even left a podium up on the stage, which he always does at these rallies, asking Biden to debate him. Now, Biden has said on the Howard Stern show that he would be happy to debate Trump, but the question remains on when and where. We'll see how things unfold as things go on the campaign trail. Reporting from Wildwood, New Jersey, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
And Trump also sang praises of North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, creating speculation of a potential VP pick.
During his rally, Trump said the country is lucky to have Burgum and told supporters to, quote, get ready for something. And for some insight into Trump's rally and the Democratic Senate primary in Maryland, we're bringing in Mike Leon. He's our contributor and the Director of Policy and Strategy at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation, as well as the host of the Can We Please Talk news commentary podcast. Great to have you, Mike. Let's kick things off with the crowd. A spokesperson for the city of Wildwood estimates that between 80 and 100,000 people were in attendance at the Trump rally. How significant is this, and what does this tell us about the strength of the MAGA base?
Well, good morning, Kevin, first and foremost, as always. Jersey's funny because obviously I grew up in Jersey. For those of you seeing the Rutgers helmet over my shoulder, the State University is where I went to college there. And obviously, Chris Christie was the former governor there, Republican governor. Obviously, Phil Murphy's a Democratic governor now and has been for 2 terms. So it's interesting because the rally is happening, as Jack said in the piece, in an area where it's a very red area down there in Wildwood, down in the Jersey Shore area. And as you get closer to Pennsylvania, which is a swing state, a lot of people from the Trump campaign did this strategically because they know that Pennsylvania is in play potentially this year. You have that, so it's about 20 to 30 miles away. Wildwood is from Pennsylvania. A lot of folks from Pennsylvania tend to go to New Jersey to vacation there in that area. So I think the rally kind of shows that, Trump is trying to hit a couple different areas with respect to Pennsylvania being such a big swing state, and especially New Jersey. Governor Murphy won re-election by a very narrow margin in 2021. And so Republicans feel like they're making inroads in New Jersey, but there's still more registered Democratic voters in the state of New Jersey, almost a 2-to-1 margin. So it would be very, as Jack said in the piece, 16 percentage points Trump lost in 2020. It'd be interesting to see if that margin shrinks a little bit more in 2024.
Well, it's interesting. Some people were comparing how President Biden was on a beach vacation in Rehoboth, and you talk about the location, and that was just near, actually, Wildwood, while Trump was out there campaigning here. Trump's trying to flip this Democratic stronghold of New Jersey red. How realistic is that?
I mean, he's trying as well in New York. You saw he's been trying to, did a couple events at a deli back in Spanish Harlem. I know, obviously, we know Staten Island is a big Republican stronghold. I don't know how realistic it is to make a dent from a red wave in some of these blue states, specifically, like you just said, right? Delaware is obviously where Biden lives and is from that area. But Pennsylvania is probably the most realistic one to be able to try to flip in 2024. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, the tri-state area, there's more registered Democratic voters than there are Republican voters, but it doesn't mean you don't try, right? And I think the former president's campaign right now is trying by putting on these events, and they're doing it strategically, like I just mentioned before. They're having it in areas where there are a large base of Republican voters in those counties, and where they feel like maybe they can make a dent because it overlaps with some other states that are so close by.
And just for some context here, Mike, the last 8 presidential elections went for Democrats in New Jersey, but in the 80s and late 70s, some Republicans won there. Let's move on to the Democratic Senate primary in Maryland. How did the race between Representative Trone and County Executive Alsobrooks become so competitive?
Yeah, so this is really interesting, Kevin, something that everybody should be watching, especially if you live in the state of Maryland. We were just talking about 2-to-1 Democratic registered voters than Republican, and that's what Maryland is. There's a huge Senate race happening right now. Tomorrow is the primary day for folks in Maryland, so if you're registered in Maryland, go out there and obviously cast your vote. On the Democratic side, David Trone right now represents the 6th district in the House, and he's also the co-owner of Total Wine Spirits. So if you've ever been to Total Wine Spirits, he's a co-owner there. And his district, he's decided to leave his district to run for Senate in this pivotal Senate race that the Democratic side, whoever wins in this battle between Alsobrooks, who's endorsed by every major state representative and the governor, versus Trone, will face potentially Larry Hogan on the Republican side, who obviously was the former governor of the state and very popular. And so this is a key Senate race right now. Obviously, we know the margins in the House and Senate are razor thin on both sides. And so if Trone's leaving District 6, that's a district that potentially now the Republican candidate could win. And so that seat is in play because of him leaving. This is just such a close race. And you would think, I just mentioned he's the co-owner of Total Wines. He spent $61 million on his campaign so far. How is it so close? It's because Alsobrooks has been doing a really good job on the ground and has endorsements by everybody pretty much at the state and local level down there. So it's going to be interesting to watch and see what happens, especially in November with this Senate race.
Well, thanks for coming on this morning. Our contributor, Mark Leon, the Director of Policy and Strategy at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation.
Thanks, Kevin.
Moving on, anti-Israel protesters have demonstrated or tried to disrupt recent college graduation ceremonies. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the latest incidents across the country.
In California, police scuffled with a few dozen anti-Israel protesters who tried to block access to Sunday evening's commencement at Pomona College. The liberal arts school moved the event after demonstrators set up an encampment last week on the campus ceremony stage. And at Berkeley on Saturday, a small group of anti-Israel demonstrators waved flags and chanted during commencement and were escorted to the back of the stadium. In North Carolina at Duke University, dozens of students walked out of the ceremony in protest of comedian Jerry Seinfeld being guest speaker on Sunday, reportedly due to his support for Israel. In response, other students chanted, "Jerry, Jerry." Seinfeld told the students that it is worth the sacrifice of an occasional discomfort to have some laughs, even if it's at the cost of some hard feelings once in a while.
You gotta laugh. That is the one thing at the end of your life you will not wish you did less of. Humor is the most powerful, most survival, essential quality you will ever have or need to navigate through the human experience.
Seinfeld, who received an honorary degree at Duke, recently complained during an interview that political correctness, by what he called the extreme left, is leading to the disappearance of funny TV shows. Seinfeld also touched on the topic of privilege, saying privilege today seems to be the worst thing you can have.
I say, use your privilege. I grew up a Jewish boy from New York. That is a privilege if you want to be a comedian.
At Emerson College in Boston, some students took off their graduation robes and left them on stage. Others emblazoned Free Palestine on their graduation caps. In related news, a group of Republican senators want nonprofit organizations that have supported anti-Israel protests on college campuses across the country to be investigated. The senators are led by Senator Joni Ernst. They are demanding a probe into several organizations that, quote, have engaged in conduct warranting revocation of their tax-exempt statuses on the basis of their financial support of the National Students for Justice in Palestine group. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
For the second time in a decade, Senator Bob Menendez faces a corruption trial starting today. Menendez and his wife face charges related to a bribery scheme involving the governments of Egypt and Qatar. Federal prosecutors say the couple received gold bars and hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash. FBI agents said they found more than $480,000 during a raid on Menendez's home. Some of it was allegedly stuffed into the pockets of clothing hanging in closets. Lawyers for Menendez maintain his innocence, and the senator has spoken optimistically about mounting a re-election campaign. Menendez was forced to resign as president of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee after charges were brought against him last year. In 2015, he was indicted for allegedly taking bribes. That trial ended with a deadlocked jury. Coming up, Israel fighting Hamas terrorists, regrouping in northern Gaza, and moving deeper into Rafah.
The IDF says at least 300,000 people evacuated the eastern part of the crowded city over the weekend, the latest in the Israel-Hamas war. And a shakeup in Russia's cabinet. Russia's leader Vladimir Putin starts off his fifth term by replacing his decade-long defense minister. More on Sergei Shoigu's replacement and Putin's reason for the change.
Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. Prediabetes does. One in 3 adults has prediabetes, and you could be one of them. There are usually no signs for prediabetes, so it's important to understand your risk. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed, and you can change the outcome. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now, Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
Welcome back, everyone. Israel's military says it's continuing precise operations in eastern Rafah against the terrorist group Hamas after ordering more evacuations over the weekend. The IDF says at least 300,000 people have left Rafah in a temporary evacuation. The crowded southern city had been sheltering over 1 million Palestinians. Israel has now evacuated the eastern third of Rafah. And Israeli forces in northern Gaza moved into the city of Jabalia yesterday. And NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the war in the Gaza Strip.
Israeli tanks moved into eastern Jabalia in the northern Gaza Strip on Sunday. The IDF warned residents in the region to evacuate west, saying it was a dangerous combat zone. An IDF spokesman on X said the military would work with great force to stop Hamas from rebuilding its capabilities. Top U.S. officials called their Israeli counterparts, expressing concerns over a potential Israeli offensive in Rafah. The crowded city bordering Egypt is considered Hamas's last stronghold. A State Department readout says Secretary Blinken reaffirmed U.S. opposition to a major military ground operation and underscored an urgent need to protect civilians and aid workers. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan relayed those same concerns from President Biden. The White House says Sullivan talked about alternative ways to defeat Hamas everywhere in Gaza and set an in-person meeting between U.S. and Israeli officials soon. Outside of Gaza, a rocket directly hit a house in the southern Israeli city of Ashkelon Sunday, and an explosion near the northern border with Lebanon caught on camera indicated an attack from the terrorist group Hezbollah. Meanwhile, Israel was marking its first Memorial Day since October 7th. Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu pledged to finish the war in Gaza in memory of the 1,200 murdered civilians and vowed to continue fighting until victory in memory of those killed in the war.
Keep going until victory, and that's how we will do it. The spirit of the people, with God's help, will continue to lift us up in the fateful challenges that are still ahead of us.
The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry says Israel's military operations have killed close to 35,000 Palestinians since the start of the conflict. The terrorist-run ministry does not differentiate combatants. Egypt's foreign minister on Sunday said Cairo would continue mediation between Israel and Hamas and called for flexibility in the will to reach a ceasefire deal. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Israeli opposition leader and former Vice Prime Minister Tzipi Livni says a key dispute between Netanyahu and Biden is over what happens once the war is over.
The most important thing that is missing right now is not the question of what the Israeli forces will do directly in Rafah, outside of Rafah, but the real question is, okay, and then what? What's the end game? Who's going to replace Hamas in Gaza? Because topple the regime is important, but you cannot just topple the regime without replacing it.
The United Nations warned that the humanitarian plight in Gaza has reached unprecedented levels. Secretary General Antonio Guterres said an all-out invasion would be a, quote, epic humanitarian disaster.
In Israel, meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he will investigate his government's failures during the October 7th Hamas attack.
Israeli authorities said need to conduct a thorough examination once the war ends to find out, quote, exactly what happened, why it happened, how it happened, and who made it happen.
Joining me now for more is Alex Trayman. He is the CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief for the Jewish News Syndicate. Good morning, Alex. Good to see you again. So, on what we just heard from the Israeli opposition leader, what can you tell us about Netanyahu's vision for a post-war Gaza and how far that might be apart with the vision of that of the U.S.?
Yes, good morning. So obviously the United States wants to see the Palestinian Authority take over the Gaza Strip from Hamas after the war. The only problem is that the Palestinian Authority was given control of the Gaza Strip in 2005 when Israel withdrew from the area to begin with, only to lose it to Hamas a year later. And it is widely believed that not only would the Palestinian Authority potentially lose control of the Strip once again, as it did before, but that it itself is a corrupt body, and therefore that incentivizes terror in the West Bank and Judea and Samaria, and therefore shouldn't be given or gifted control of this territory after October 7th and after Hamas is taken power. So what the Israelis want to see is, number one, that they're not going to leave so quickly. They're going to be there to provide military security leadership inside the Gaza Strip for as long as it takes to continue to root out all of the individual terror cells that continue to pop up, but to two, utilize local leadership, more of like local municipal leaders that are not incentivizing to terror, that are not opposed to Israeli continued military rule in the area. But of course, that's not what the United States wants to hear, but which is why Netanyahu is not talking about it all that much.
Very interesting insights. I want to move on also to talk about something else. The Washington Post reports that the Biden administration would be willing to share valuable information, and that refers to intelligence of the whereabouts of Hamas leaders or tunnel locations if Israel would basically hold back in its Rafah operation. And now the U.S., though, has been assisting Israel with intelligence since the war started, as far as we know. So how important do you think this offer is, that this kind of assistance from the U.S. will continue?
Right, so that's the question. Is there information that the United States has been held that they have not passed on to Israel? Because if that's the case, I think that is a big red flag for Israel right now, to know that their ally in this war has not been passing them important information that they would need to end this war faster. Or if they have, are they now saying that they would not any longer pass over critical information to help them to win the war if Israel does continue the war? So these are critical questions that Israel is going to have to assess and to figure out, if they can move ahead without the American intelligence and do they need to go into Rafah to win the war? Netanyahu has been saying repeatedly, that this war cannot be won without the operation inside Rafah, where the remaining Hamas battalions reside.
And now, on that note, there is more evacuations underway now in Rafah. What are the updates there? What can you tell us about that? And what do you know about what might happen after that? I mean, what will happen next after the evacuations?
So far, there have been limited attacks inside Rafah, meaningful but limited. We know that Israel's already taken over the Egyptian side of the Rafah crossing. I mean, within Gaza, but on the side towards Egypt, which has been an area where there's been a lot of trafficking of goods supplies into the Gaza Strip. So they want to make sure that there's no smuggling of materials going on there, and they will start pushing towards the north. There's been the evacuation of over 150,000 residents from Rafah so far into these other 10 cities that have been set up specifically for the Rafah evacuees. And I do think that Israel is going to be moving in a very, very methodical fashion through Rafah and not sending mass battalions of troops all over the area until the remaining civilians are moved to these makeshift tent cities.
Now, the Biden administration also just published a report that says Israel may have violated international law with American weapons. So can you tell us more about that report? And could it have something to do with Biden's warnings that he would halt weapon shipments?
I think that these two are very much connected. And we just continue to see over and over how the United States is pulling out straws of support for Israel step by step. First we saw the sanctioning of Jews living in Judea and Samaria, calling them extremist settlers, even though they had never had any convictions inside Israel. Now we saw the sanctioning of an IDF battalion, which has been key to securing the northern border during this crisis, because they're saying that they have committed some acts which are potentially in violation of humanitarian law. And now saying again that some of the weapons that the United States has committed over to Israel may have been in some kind of violation of international law. Israel has done more than any military in the history of modern warfare to reduce civilian casualties, has one of the strictest moral codes of any army. And for the United States to come in and say that Israel, of all armies in the world, is violating humanitarian law. If Israel is violating humanitarian law in this conflict, every single military in every single conflict around the world is violating humanitarian law, including and especially the United States. So I think Israel has to understand what the United States is saying.
So just before we go, just quickly, Biden has also been under a lot of criticism now for that ultimatum. Democrats are concerned basically about what this message is sending to Hamas and Iran. How do you think they might perceive this message?
This has been the strategy of Hamas and Iran the entire war. Hamas never thought that they could defeat the IDF on the battlefield itself. What they were hoping was that the international community would put pressure on Israel, say that Israel violated humanitarian law, say that Israel violated international law, and to get them to stop before they wiped Hamas out completely, which is what the United States is trying to do right now by preventing them from going into Rafah and by delegitimizing Israel in all the international forums. And this is what they're doing as well. And you might see sanctions, you might see the withholding of weapons. This is everything that Hamas wants. This is everything that Iran wants. The United States is basically gifting Hamas and Iran the victory that they sought from the outset of the war through the actions that they're taking right now.
Right. I hear what you're saying. And it wasn't a big imbalance in military power from the very beginning. And that was definitely clear. Thank you so much, Alex Trayman, for your analysis and for your insights.
Thank you for having me.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is replacing his defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, with a civilian economist. The cabinet shakeup comes as Putin starts his fifth term in office. The entire Russian cabinet resigned last week after Putin's inauguration, which is in line with Russian law. Most members were widely expected to keep their jobs. Putin proposed Andrei Belosov to replace Shoigu after more than 2 years of war in Ukraine. Belosov is a 65-year-old former deputy prime minister who specializes in economics. He's also played a role in overseeing Russia's drone program. The Kremlin said the change is meant to ensure military spending is better integrated into Russia's overall economy. Shoigu was Russia's defense minister for over a decade.
Up next, a former U.S. Marine pilot charged with training Chinese military pilots tied to a convicted Chinese defense hacker.
Court filings expose connections to Chinese regime agents that the pilot's lawyer says were unknown to his client. More on the ex-pilot now fighting extradition from Australia. And a rare solar storm brought dazzling visuals of the northern lights to millions of people across the world. We take a look at some of the breathtaking video.
Parade attendees from all over Europe marked the celebration of World Falun Dafa Day in Munich and the 32nd anniversary of the spread of Falun Dafa around the world with a rally and a parade.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Do you ever wake up and realize your life has no purpose?
Do I have a death wish? Morgan asked. Maybe I did. I thought this would be our final run ever. We had made millions and millions of dollars, but God had other plans.
Peter Lowe, the one-time drug dealer turned pastor, along with 2 others, will be executed at 12 midnight local time.
The next day, something strange happened. Someone came up to me and gave me this flyer about Jesus.
You can be in heaven, or you can be in hell. The choice is yours.
We'll walk straight out of here. Pretend to be the media.
This pathetic maggot got caught trying to escape my prison. Nobody escapes my prison.
He's a changed person. He's a new man.
I found Christ in here, and he forgave me.
I found Christ too.
My name is Peter Lowe, and I will be executed in 2 hours. Why am I being executed, you ask?
Jesus is for free, and salvation is a gift. Do you believe in Jesus?
It's time. Oh, it's really big.
Donating pet food is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Welcome back. A former U.S. Marine pilot charged with training Chinese military pilots was unknowingly working with a Chinese hacker, according to his lawyer.
55-year-old Daniel Duggan is fighting extradition from Australia on U.S. charges of training Chinese military pilots to land on aircraft carriers.
Duggan denies allegations that he broke U.S. arms control laws. He has been in an Australian maximum security prison since his 2022 arrest. That was after working for 6 years in Beijing.
The lawyer's filing says U.S. authorities found communications with Duggan on devices seized from a convicted Chinese hacker named Su Bin.
Su Bin pleaded guilty to theft of U.S. military aircraft designs by hacking major U.S. defense contractors in 2016. Duggan's lawyer says his client didn't know of Su Bin's connections to Chinese regime agents.
The Australian Attorney General will decide whether to surrender Duggan to the U.S. after a court hears his extradition case later this month.
And a U.S. government agency that monitors solar activity said the biggest geomagnetic storm in 2 decades took place over the weekend.
This caused people all over the world to witness a dazzling display of lights in the night sky. Let's take a look.
Wow.
The biggest geomagnetic storm in 2 decades resulted in dazzling lights displays across large swaths of the northern hemisphere over the weekend. Curtains of green, pink, and purple lights, known as the Northern Lights or the Aurora Borealis, could be seen around the world from Russia to the United States, as well as in parts of Latin America, including a rare appearance in Mexico. The U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration described the event as extreme and warned on Saturday that the solar storm could pose risks to radio, GPS, and satellite communications. But Volker Bottmer, a leading astrophysicist at the University of Göttingen in Germany, said that while the solar storm is strong, it's not powerful enough to cause significant disruptions.
In the consequences of an extreme storm, you can have a lot of problems with the technology, infrastructure, communication, navigation systems, and so on. But this storm was not so extreme that we really have to fear of any severe damages.
Geomagnetic storms are caused when explosions of plasma and magnetic fields from the sun's corona are directed at Earth. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration said the current geomagnetic storm is likely to continue through Sunday.
Also over the weekend, Falun Dafa practitioners from Germany and Europe gathered in Munich for a grand rally and parade.
The event celebrated the May 13th World Falun Dafa Day and the 32nd anniversary of the spread of Falun Dafa around the world.
Falun Dafa is also known as Falun Gong. It is a cultivation practice based on truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. It gained tens of millions of followers after it was first publicly introduced on May 13th, 1992. Here's a report.
In a sea of bright yellow and white, the peaceful music of Falun Gong exercises flowed through the old city of Munich, leading up to the celebration of World Falun Dafa Day in Germany. German politician Benedikt Fexeter was at the rally.
Today we stand here together to express our solidarity with Falun Dafa practitioners around the world and raise our voices for justice and freedom. May this day inspire all of us to work towards a world where the rights and dignity of every individual are respected, and that world is characterized by truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance.
Traditional lion dance and waist drum performances entertained tourists and locals alike. A judge shared the beauty of practicing Falun Dafa and its 3 principles: truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance.
I'm simply much calmer and more relaxed after practicing Falun Dafa. When things don't go as I want them to, I now would stay much calmer and analyze the situation, and then I can handle it better. The first time I practiced Falun Dafa exercises, I felt a strong energy, and I cannot describe it. It felt like something spinning on the back of my hand, so I knew that this is indeed real energy.
The parade officially began with the music of the Tianguo Marching Band. Colorful flags and various Chinese and English banners formed multiple formations, passing on the festivities to the public.
It was fascinating to me. I was moved and truly overwhelmed seeing what's happening here. It was just wonderful. The whole world needs the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. The whole world should think this way. If truly everyone in this world can take this to heart, there will be peace in the world.
Given the situation and the wars that are going around the world, and when we wake up all of a sudden uncertain about so many things, I believe that such principles are the things that should be leading the future of the world.
The event also called for an end to the 25 years of brutal persecution of Falun Dafa in mainland China.
Organ harvesting, murder, torture, arbitrary detentions, and these are mistakes that we simply cannot allow as a free society.
Several German officials sent their congratulations. Among them, Heiko Kassekert wrote, "The 32nd anniversary of World Falun Dafa Day is an important milestone, which not only emphasizes the positive impact of this practice on millions of people around the world, but also highlights the challenges and violence faced by Falun Dafa practitioners in China." Kassekert expressed his respect to Mr. Li Hongzhi, the founder of Falun Gong. He said his teachings and principles have brought hope and enlightenment to millions of people, which will forever live in the hearts of those who benefit from Falun Dafa. NTD News, Munich, Germany.
That was quite a crowd, and I think many countries around the world saw this kind of celebration.
Yes, that's right. And we saw a huge parade here in New York City on Friday for the World Falun Dafa Day celebration. And you just learned so much about traditional Chinese culture from it. Those women in the lotus boats, and then you have the drummers and all the different costumes. It's really awesome.
Yeah, all rooted in traditional Chinese culture. That's great.
And we're going to go to break here. Workers at an Apple store in Maryland have voted in favor of authorizing a strike. We look at what the Retail Workers Union hopes to accomplish and more with the host of Business Matters coming up.
Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below. Support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Are you ready to help your family get prepared for the unexpected?
Everyone in? Here we go!
Ladybug and Cat Noir know how important it is to be ready. Because you never know when Hawkmoth is going to strike, or a disaster will hit. And you don't need miraculous powers. Just put those planning skills you already have to good use. Know who to call, decide on a safe meeting location, and create an emergency preparedness kit. Make a plan that will help you and your family be ready when emergencies happen. Ready Kids can help.
I'm coming to save you!
Get started at ready.gov/kids.
Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. Prediabetes does. 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, but with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. And you can change the outcome. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
Good to have you back. We have NTD's Business Matters host Don Ma with us right now to give us the latest updates from the business world.
Don, tell us what's going on at Apple.
Yeah, so this happened over the weekend. It was announced late on Saturday night. So they were the first Apple retail store to unionize with the employees. And what happened there was on Saturday, workers in Towson, Maryland voted in favor of authorizing a strike. And that's according to a statement by the union. representing those workers. So the union is called the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers. It said that the issue at the forefront of the action include concerns over work-life balance, unpredictable schedule practices, and disrupting personal lives and wages that don't align with the area's cost of living. So an Apple spokesperson said in response to that statement that Apple will engage with the union representing the team in Tosin respectfully and in good faith. Now, also on Saturday, in a different location at an Apple store, Bloomberg reported that an Apple store in New Jersey voted against unionizing. So that happened at the same time.
Yeah, and we heard that Apple has been facing some labor unrest in the retail stores already for a while. And among other challenges, it seems like their problems are definitely not getting less. So let's talk about the solar storm one more time here, because we just heard that there were risks for, GPS, other communication technologies. So what happened to Starlink in that situation?
Yeah, so just like what you mentioned, with Starlink, there's also a bit of impact here. So Elon Musk actually said on Saturday, warned of a degraded service. And by the way, just for your information, Starlink owns about 60% of roughly the 7,500 satellites orbiting Earth. And this is a dominant player in satellite internet. So Musk said on X in a post that Starlink satellites were under a lot of pressure due to the geomagnetic storm. He said that despite those impacts, those satellites are still holding up. So the thousands of Starlink satellites in low Earth orbit use inter-satellite laser links to pass data between one another in space at the speed of light, allowing the network to offer internet coverage around the world. So it is important that we're talking about this right now. And by the way, Starlink is the satellite arm of Elon Musk's SpaceX.
Yeah, and we're not out of the cosmic woods yet, as reportedly there's more geomagnetic activity like solar flares that could last through this week here. Let's talk about the spaceship rocket now that we're on the topic of SpaceX.
Sure, so SpaceX's Starship rocket will probably have its fourth flight in 3 to 5 weeks. And this is according to the company's chief executive, Elon Musk. He said in a post on Saturday about this. So the Starship rocket is a futuristic vehicle designed to eventually carry astronauts to the moon and potentially even beyond that. So Musk said the objective is for the ship to get past max heating, or at least further than last time. So earlier this year, SpaceX's Starship completed nearly an entire test flight on its third try, getting further than before, but disintegrated on its return to Earth, since we're on the topic.
Well, definitely sounds like progress, though. I'm looking forward to see what will happen next this coming time. So I want to bring it back and focus on consumer news a little bit more here. What is happening with President Biden's efforts on limiting credit card late fees?
Yeah, potentially an obstacle here facing President Biden here. So what happened is a new rule limiting excessive credit card late fees that was set to take effect Tuesday has been put on hold. So a federal judge on Friday temporarily blocked the U.S. government's attempt to ban credit card late fees of more than $8 a month. And U.S. District Judge Mark Pittman sided with bank lobbyists, and they challenged the legality of the cap in a lawsuit, saying that the policy is unconstitutional. And the preliminary injunction will allow the lobbyists' legal battle to play out in court. Just a quick update on that.
Yeah, and a counsel at the the Chamber of Commerce said that this is a ruling for consumers who pay their credit cards on time and businesses that want to provide credit. So Don Ma, host of Business Matters, thank you.
Thank you.
Stay with us. Employee loneliness. It's leading to avoidable days off and costing U.S. firms billions every year. Is there a way to reverse this? An employee engagement specialist weighs in when we come back.
when I drink it, the first thing was I feel the warmth in my tummy. It's kind of like gently radiating out, a kind of a very comforting warmth. And it was really good, actually. I felt much better. I did feel, actually, an effect. And I find that it is actually better when I take it regularly.
It's actually steamed and dried 9 times. And so it's really, the essence is really extracted.
Then a second time, I tried it really like on an empty stomach and just 2 teaspoons of it, and over a few times. And wow, that was a big difference, because suddenly I could feel, wow, I was very good energized. I didn't have to eat. I could work outside in the garden for a couple of hours, and I still felt very well. And I was impressed by that. So I think it's a good product.
How'd it happen?
She showed up dead on arrival.
This never gets easier.
It does when you call CarShield before your car breaks down. Look at these prices. The camshaft, transmission, engine.
Don't people know? A plan through CarShield could protect up to 5,000 parts and systems.
You hate to see it.
An out-of-warranty car is gonna break down eventually.
Right, which is why they need a plan through CarShield. Those expensive repair bills get paid and at the mechanic of their choice. They're notifying the family.
Poor guy, he doesn't even know what's coming.
Another victim of senselessly expensive repair bills. Can't save them all.
But we can keep trying. Didn't have to end this way. If he'd have just called CarShield before his car broke down.
Exactly.
Protect yourself from the unprecedented rise in cost for parts and repairs. Call now to save money with your price lock guarantee. Call 800-429-5128.
You need some help?
Your tow chains are a little loose. Could spark a wildfire. I could show you how to secure them properly if you'd like.
Sure. Thanks a lot.
Anytime. You should check out SmokeyBear.com. They've got a bunch of tips on wildfire prevention.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Good to have you back. Loneliness in the workplace, it's been found to affect companies' bottom line. That's according to data published in the Journal of Organizational Effectiveness.
It shows that U.S. employers are losing a whopping $154 billion every year due to people taking days off because they're lonely. That's 5 more avoidable days off per year than people who are not lonely. But there are some ways to turn this around.
Yes, check out my interview with Ray Higdon, an expert on employee engagement and the CEO of network marketing firm Higdon Group. He starts with how prevalent loneliness is.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, and it's everywhere. And especially right now with so many negative things going on in the world, there's a lot of employees that are checking out. And that has actually led to not just low work production and work ethic, but it's actually also led to theft. Employee theft is at an all-time high as well.
And it's troubling because you think, we're in this interconnected world with all the social media, there would be more interactions, less loneliness, but it doesn't seem to be like what we're seeing here. So how can employees find a way to break out of this cycle to be more productive?
So employees, they really are looking, whether they know this or not, they're actually looking for 2 things, and that's connection and meaning. And so connection is not having 100 people say hello to you or how you doing without actually caring, but connection is knowing that who they work with and who they work for actually cares about them. Meaning is, okay, what are we doing here? Is what I'm doing meaningful? Is there a purpose for me to be here? Those are the 2 things that people really need.
Okay, yeah, and Ray, in Cigna's loneliness index, it says that 62% of employed adults say they're lonely here, so it's a very serious issue. What should employees who are experiencing loneliness do? Can they go to their employer for help on this?
Well, I do. They can, but most employers aren't going to know what to do. and so they can. My encouragement to anyone who is feeling lonely is to find a deeper purpose for their life. Find, who is it that you could be serving? We're actually meant to serve, and they've done psychological studies that the more we focus on ourselves, the more likely we are to be depressed and lonely. And so who can you serve? How can you go out there and make someone feel better? Is it a charity? Is it, someone that has been through a similar experience as you? And so finding that purpose. But most employees, if they go to their employer, the employer doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, those meaningful connections can be really important here, especially considering that the U.S. Surgeon General found in 2023 that loneliness is a lethal pandemic and it equates to smoking 15 cigarettes every day. But how is this affecting the employer's bottom line here?
Well, when someone is lonely, they just don't have the hormones, they don't have the energy levels that's needed for high performance. And so for the employer to learn something that they've probably never learned, which is how to actually make their employees feel connected and have meaning and purpose in their lives as far as their position in the company, that's something that if you do that, okay, it's going to really, really help the employee and have them feel connected, have them feel like, hey, we're on a mission together. I'm part of a family. I'm part of a unit. We're doing something meaningful, and you will see performance skyrocket. But you gotta be willing to change some culture things.
Yeah, and what can they change?
So one is how they communicate. Most employers communicate to their people like they're a number, right? They do the very bare minimum to connect with them. They chastise them if they're not performing, but they don't spend time connecting with them and learning more about them and finding out what makes them tick. What is special about them. There are incredible stories in employees in every single company, but most of the times employers don't even know that. You could have them doing trainings, you could have them sharing their experiences, what they've overcome, and this would actually bring hope, not just to them, but also to everyone that they share it with as well.
Very useful and fascinating insights this morning. Ray Higdon, CEO of Higdon Group, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Such an interesting and insightful interview. And isn't it just so interesting that after everything, we've become more reliant on technology, and everything with the pandemic, the trends in the end just showed us. It proved that we just really need that human connection after all.
Yeah, that work from home could have really put a lot of strain on people experiencing that loneliness. So hopefully they can find those meaningful connections and break out of it.
Exactly. All right, we're heading to a quick break now, but we'll be right back with more, so stay tuned.
NTD News, the fastest growing independent news source in America, bringing you breaking news from around the world. Expert analysis, investigative reporting, and original award-winning documentaries. We're known for our uncensored China coverage you won't find anywhere else. We cover the stories that affect you and shape our world without the political noise. We report from the heart with you in mind. Watch us right here on NTD News.
Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. A key witness set to testify today in former President Trump's criminal trial in New York. Will fixer Michael Cohen help answer whether Trump falsified records and Cohen is a convicted perjurer? Will that affect his credibility? Some analysis.
Dozens walk out in protest as comedian Jerry Seinfeld gives Duke's commencement address, as other anti-Israel protests continue across the nation.
Israel fighting Hamas terrorists regrouping in northern Gaza and moving deeper into Rafah. Israel's military says at least 300,000 people have left the crowded southern city in a temporary evacuation, the latest in the Israel-Hamas war.
The northern lights were visible at much lower latitudes than usual over the weekend. The dazzling displays let many see the light show for the first time. We look at what causes the heavenly phenomenon.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters, here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Today is Monday, May 13th. Today's top news. It's being called one of the largest political rallies in New Jersey history. Former President Trump's rally on Saturday drew tens of thousands to the beach town of Wildwood.
The crowd was significant since the state has, for decades, consistently voted for Democratic presidential candidates. NTD's Jack Bradley was in Wildwood, New Jersey.
In one of his biggest political rallies, Donald Trump held a rally right here in Wildwood, New Jersey. Now, Wildwood is a red area in the middle of a blue state. New Jersey has been blue for a while now, and Trump spoke about many things all up on stage, including inflation, electric vehicles, and immigration. Here's some highlights from that.
Jersey, we're going to win the state of New Jersey. In the past 3 years, the average New Jersey family has lost $23,381 to the inflation tax. Bacon is up 79%, bacon. That's why I don't have bacon anymore. It's too expensive.
The Trump tax cuts helped the middle class more than it did the rich people. We have a very progressive tax code. The rich people already pay way more than their, quote, fair share.
I mean, look at the housing market right now. Young people want to buy homes and they can't afford to. President Trump bringing his policies, his sound economic policies back into the White House is what people want.
We want to be able to feed our families. We want to be able to keep them safe. We want to be able to go out and exercise on our own without the fear of being brutally murdered.
Nobody wants to live in a place where they can't walk the streets at night. You recently had a woman strangled from behind, pulled between two cars up in the Bronx and raped. Like, this kind of stuff we've never seen. We haven't seen this kind of stuff in 30 years.
In 2020, Trump lost to Biden by 16 percentage points here in New Jersey. Now, this comes amid Trump's New York hush money case, where Michael Cohen, his former lawyer, is expected to testify on Monday. The validity of his testimony will come into question as he's been convicted of lying under oath already. Trump has repeatedly said that he would debate Biden anytime, anywhere, any place, and he even left a podium up on the stage, which he always does at these rallies, asking Biden to debate him. Now, Biden has said on the Howard Stern show that he would be happy to debate Trump, but the question remains on when and where. We'll see how things unfold as things go on the campaign trail. Reporting from Wildwood, New Jersey, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Moving on to former President Trump's criminal trial in New York. We get some analysis and a preview of testimony expected today by key witness Michael Cohen from John Malcolm. He's the vice president of the Heritage Foundation's Institute for Constitutional Government and the director of the Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies. Good morning to you, John. Thanks for being here. The prosecutors are ready to rest their case after they hear what they expect Cohen to say, that is that Trump knew the records for reimbursement checks would be falsified to cover up their link to the hush money payment. Explain why that could be crucial.
Well, this is, although there's been a lot of salacious testimony, at the end of the day, a documents case. The allegation is that false business records were maintained in order to cover up another crime. It's not about whether former President Trump slept with or didn't sleep with Stormy Daniels. It's not about whether he wore boxer shorts or something else. It's a business records case. And Michael Cohen is the person who was at the center of all of that. He was the president's so-called fixer. So he's the one who had conversations with Donald Trump. He's the one who traded documents with Donald Trump. He's the one who can say what Donald Trump knew or didn't know about why these business records were being made. Now, he is eminently attackable. He used to say he would take a bullet for the former president, and now metaphorically, he wants to put a bullet in him. He has his own podcast called Revenge, and the person he wants to take revenge against is former President Trump. He is also, of course, a convicted perjurer. Now, I'm a former federal prosecutor. I sometimes had to call unsavory witnesses to the stand. Certainly, they are, their credibility and his credibility is going to be subject to a withering attack. The question is going to be, one, how believable does he come off in his testimony? How does he withstand that cross-examination? And what documentary evidence exists to support what he has to say?
And John, as a side note here, Trump's attorneys last week, Blanche, were saying that Cohen was talking about Trump and the case on TikTok, and these are witnesses that are asked not to talk about the case, but they're not subject to that same gag order that Trump is here. You mentioned that Cohen is a convicted perjurer, meaning he's lied under oath. Will that undermine his testimony once jurors know of this?
Yeah, look, unless the prosecutors have lots of documents or recorded conversations to back up what he has to say, I think that nobody is going to believe Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen has said that he was prepared to be lawless for President Trump. He was convicted of lying before a grand jury. He was convicted of lying before Congress. He was convicted of fraud involving a scheme with taxicab medallions that has nothing to do with Donald Trump. I mean, this is not, if he walked in and it was wet and said it was raining, you would still check outside before grabbing your umbrella. However, if there are a lot of documents or recorded conversations to back up what he has to say, perhaps the jury will believe him.
So, John, what do you expect the defense to question Cohen on?
Oh, I think they will attack him for everything. They will say he is making up stuff because he wasn't paid. They will say that he sought a pardon from Trump when he was president. And then when Trump said, I'm not going to pardon him, that he became vengeful and started lying upside one side and down the other to anybody who would listen. And that, he's just somebody you should never believe under any circumstances, much less convict somebody on the basis of their testimony.
Well, John Malcolm, VP of Heritage Foundation's Institute for Constitutional Government and Director of the Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies, thanks for coming on the show this morning.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
Anti-Israel protesters have demonstrated or tried to disrupt recent college graduation ceremonies. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the latest incidents across the country.
In North Carolina at Duke University, dozens of students walked out of the ceremony in protest of comedian Jerry Seinfeld being guest speaker on Sunday, reportedly due to his support for Israel. In response, other students chanted, "Jerry, Jerry." Seinfeld told the students that it is worth the sacrifice of an occasional discomfort to have some laughs, even if it's at the cost of some hard feelings once in a while.
You gotta laugh. That is the one thing at the end of your life you will not wish you did less of. Humor is the most powerful, most survival, essential quality you will ever have or need to navigate through the human experience.
Seinfeld also touched on the topic of privilege, saying privilege today seems to be the worst thing you can have.
I say, use your privilege. I grew up a Jewish boy from New York. That is a privilege if you want to be a comedian.
In related news, a group of Republican senators want nonprofit organizations that have supported anti-Israel protests on college campuses across the country to be investigated. The senators are led by Senator Joni Ernst. They are demanding a probe into several organizations that, quote, have engaged in conduct warranting revocation of their tax-exempt statuses on the basis of their financial support of the National Students for Justice in Palestine group. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Israel's military says it's continuing precise operations in eastern Rafah against the terrorist group Hamas after ordering more evacuations over the weekend.
The IDF says at least 300,000 people have left Rafah in a temporary evacuation. The crowded southern city had been sheltering over 1 million Palestinians. Israel has now evacuated the eastern third of Rafah.
And Israeli forces in northern Gaza moved into the city of Jabalia yesterday. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the war in the Gaza Strip.
Israeli tanks moved into eastern Jabalia in the northern Gaza Strip on Sunday. The IDF warned residents in the region to evacuate west, saying it was a dangerous combat zone. An IDF spokesman on X said the military would work with great force to stop Hamas from rebuilding its capabilities. Top U.S. officials called their Israeli counterparts, expressing concerns over a potential Israeli offensive in Rafah. The crowded city bordering Egypt is considered Hamas's last stronghold. A State Department readout says Secretary Blinken reaffirmed U.S. opposition to a major military ground operation and underscored an urgent need to protect civilians and aid workers. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan relayed those same concerns from President Biden. The White House says Sullivan talked about alternative ways to defeat Hamas everywhere in Gaza and said an in-person meeting between U.S. and Israeli officials soon. Outside of Gaza, a rocket directly hit a house in the southern Israeli city of Ashkelon Sunday, and an explosion near the northern border with Lebanon caught on camera indicated an attack from the terrorist group Hezbollah. Meanwhile, Israel was marking its first Memorial Day since October 7th. Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu pledged to finish the war in Gaza in memory of the 1,200 murdered civilians and vowed to continue fighting until victory in memory of those killed in the war.
Keep going until victory.
And that's how we will do it. The spirit of the people, with God's help, will continue to lift us up in the fateful challenges that are still ahead of us.
The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry says Israel's military operations have killed close to 35,000 Palestinians since the start of the conflict. The terrorist-run ministry does not differentiate combatants. Egypt's foreign minister on Sunday said Cairo would continue mediation between Israel and Hamas and called for flexibility in the will to reach a ceasefire deal. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Israeli opposition leader Tzipi Livni says a key dispute between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu is over what happens once the war ends.
The most important thing that is missing right now is not the question of what the Israeli forces will do directly in Rafah, outside of Rafah, but the real question is, okay, and then what? What's the end game? Who's going to replace Hamas in Gaza? Because topple the regime is important, but you cannot just topple the regime without replacing it.
The United Nations warned that the humanitarian plight in Gaza has reached unprecedented levels. Secretary General Antonio Guterres said an all-out invasion would be a, quote, epic humanitarian disaster.
In Israel, meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he will investigate his government's failures during the October 7th Hamas attack.
He said Israeli authorities need to conduct a thorough examination once the war ends to find out, quote, exactly what happened, why it happened, how it happened, and who made it happen.
Earlier, I spoke to Alex Trayman. He's the CEO and founder of Jerusalem Bureau Chief and the Jerusalem Bureau Chief for the Jewish News Syndicate. I asked him what he thinks Netanyahu's vision is for a post-war Gaza and how different it is from the U.S.
So obviously the United States wants to see the Palestinian Authority take over the Gaza Strip from Hamas after the war. The only problem is that the Palestinian Authority was given control of the Gaza Strip in 2005 when Israel withdrew from the area to begin with, only to lose it to Hamas a year later. And it is widely believed that not only would the Palestinian Authority potentially lose control of the Strip once again, as it did before, but that it itself is a corrupt body, and therefore that incentivizes terror in the West Bank and Judea and Samaria, and therefore shouldn't be given or gifted control of this territory after October 7th and after Hamas is taken power. So what the Israelis want to see is, number one, that they're not going to leave so quickly. They're going to be there to provide military security leadership inside the Gaza Strip for as long as it takes to continue to root out all of the individual terror cells that continue to pop up, but to two, utilize local leadership, more of like local municipal leaders that are not incentivizing to terror, that are not opposed to Israeli continued military rule in the area. But of course, that's not what the United States wants to hear, but which is why Netanyahu is not talking about it all that much.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is replacing his defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, with a civilian economist. The cabinet shakeup comes as Putin starts his fifth term in office. The entire Russian cabinet resigned last week after Putin's inauguration, which is in line with Russian law. Most members were widely expected to keep their jobs. Putin proposed Andrei Belousov to replace Shoigu after more than 2 years of war in Ukraine. Belousov is a 65-year-old former deputy prime minister who specializes in economics. He's also played a role in overseeing Russia's drone program. The Kremlin said the change is meant to ensure military spending is better integrated into Russia's overall economy. Shoigu was Russia's defense minister for over a decade.
Coming up, the northern lights were visible at much lower latitudes than usual last weekend. The dazzling displays let many see the light show for the first time. We look at what causes the heavenly phenomenon.
history. Inspired by the divine. Experience Shin
Does shopping for bladder control products have you feeling like you need someone to be on the lookout for you? Now you have your privacy back. We're HDIS, and we home deliver bladder control products directly to you. We're always on the lookout for you. You get free shipping in plain, unmarked boxes. So your private matters, stay private. We understand how you feel. For over 35 years, we've delivered bladder control products to millions of Americans, just like you. You don't have to worry about incontinence any longer. Call now for your free product sample pack and over $45 in money-saving coupons. At HDIS, we're always in stock. We carry all brands in hundreds of styles and sizes. You'll be sure to get what you need, guaranteed.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog and $45 in money-saving coupons and free product samples, call 800-701-6159. That's 800-701-6159.
I can remember being back in medical school where it was almost a depressing conception of the brain. We're born with so many neurons that peak like around 20, and then it's just a downhill decline from there. But today, we are going to debunk this old way of thinking and use a new technology called the functional MRI PET scanner to show that the brain can be rewired to function much better. It caused an almost immediate change, and by better, I mean improved focus, longer attention span, better mood, decreased risk of developing dementia, and an overall better life. So get ready to be surprised and even amazed. This is really exciting information as we explore what is possible, as we talk to thought leaders in the field. I needed to make sure I'm really that guy, okay. See the cutting edge tools they are using to assess the brain and hear from real patients about their dramatic healing process. That's good.
Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. Prediabetes does. 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, but with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. And you can change the outcome. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back, everyone. The dazzling colors of the northern lights, I'm sure you heard about it now, lit up the skies around the world over the weekend.
The largest geomagnetic storm in 2 decades, triggered by solar flares, produced stunning displays and risks of power grid problems. Let's take a look.
Aurora Borealis, also known as the Northern Lights, was seen at much lower than normal latitudes across the U.S. over the weekend. It allowed many to observe the celestial phenomenon for the first time. The U.S.-based Space Weather Prediction Center said there was an ongoing extreme geomagnetic storm, a level 5 out of 5. It's the first such classification since 2003. The spectacle delighted skywatchers as far as Texas, Tennessee, and Florida.
Wow.
Large swaths of Canada and Europe were treated to the colorful light shows. In Europe, people from Russia and as far south as Spain were able to experience nature's dazzling display. What exactly causes northern lights?
So there are a lot of sunspot regions on the Earth-facing side of the sun. And one of these large regions was positioned perfectly, producing flares and associated what are called coronal mass ejections, big blobs of the solar atmosphere that actually get ejected from the sun into interplanetary space. Each of these blobs carries a magnetic field, and it can connect to Earth's magnetic field. And the better it connects, the better they stick together, the more energy gets transferred to our atmosphere, and you get amazing aurora displays.
Geomagnetic storms have the potential to disrupt power grids and communication systems.
What ends up happening is, as these things slam into our magnetic field starts moving. And that movement will induce currents on long conductors like power lines and train tracks and pipelines. And that induced current is unwelcome, unexpected. They're not built to use this current, so it becomes a problem.
FEMA and the U.S. Department of Energy said there was no serious impacts reported from the storms. Over the 2 decades since the last event of this intensity, technology has advanced. New tools exist to lessen the risk solar flares present to power grids.
So the power companies need to have ways to mitigate that impact. And luckily, the Space Weather Prediction Center has been working closely with the industry and regulators to help them understand what space weather is and to prepare for it.
Don't worry if you missed the action this weekend. Scientists say we're coming to peak solar flare time in an 11-year cycle. There are likely to be other chances to experience the illuminated sky full of colors.
Well, that's good to know because I missed it.
Oh man, that is really cool though. Yeah, this whole process sees these energized particles hitting the Earth's atmosphere at 45 million miles an hour, and that's how you see this, because it's all directed to the poles.
Right, and as he said, right, it creates this magnetic field, and the better they connect, I think. I don't want to repeat what he said, but in the end, I woke up to a flood of pictures, also from my friends, and they live in southern Germany. We just heard Spain too. Well, it's a huge geomagnetic storm that happened, and I was very surprised that they were able to see that, because that doesn't happen usually.
Yeah.
Never heard about it. Yeah.
It's just nature's TV right on display.
Absolutely. Well, moving on, because something else happened this weekend. Of course, families across the country spend Mother's Day with a person who taught them to walk.
In Texas yesterday, hundreds celebrated by taking a walk with their mom on the first annual Mother's Day walk at the Houston Botanical Garden.
Mother's Day means something different to everyone. The creative director behind the Mother's Day walk sees it as a time to look at motherhood in all of its dimensions.
I believe that Mother's Day is an opportunity for us to just stop and reflect and think about the journey of motherhood and what we have accomplished and also what's to come.
The walk has a charitable mission too.
I believe that motherhood is an ongoing process of nurturing. You've got to take care of yourself, and you also have to take care of others. And so what better way to showcase that than to give moms an opportunity to help other mothers in need. A portion of all proceeds benefits homeless moms and also children that don't have access to food.
This family came for some quality time together.
Well, I'm out here with my daughter and my niece for Mother's Day. It's a wellness walk at the Botanical Gardens, and we just came out here to have some fun and do some yoga and just be well and just have a fun time together.
The Mother's Day walk helped this woman enjoy the day, despite the recent loss of her own mother.
This one's very special because I lost my mom, and this is my first one without my mom. So my daughter and my son and my 2 granddaughters are here, and we're just celebrating.
And did you know Mother's Day became an official U.S. holiday starting in 1914 when President Woodrow Wilson declared the holiday be celebrated the second Sunday of May?
Nowadays, people are all over the world, so it's the busiest day for phone calls in the U.S. Last year, over 122 million calls were made.
Mother's Day, now that's an important day. I mean, think about it. She gave birth to you. Who's more important than that, right?
Exactly. Hopefully nobody was, the geomagnetic storm didn't disrupt any of those phone calls. And also, what a symbolically wholesome thing to do with your mom, somebody that told you to walk, taught you to walk, and now taking a walk with them.
Yeah, exactly. Paying it forward.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, we're wrapping up the show right here now, but be sure to stay tuned for NTD's News Today broadcast that starts at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
And then for around-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app.
That's right. Thanks for watching. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.
I was born into the wrong body, Mom.
I was astounded by what they were teaching. Child Protective Services did show up at my house. Parents are fearful of losing custody of their children because they say the wrong thing. Risks?
No risks. We got everything covered, I assure you, Mrs. Connors.
They don't want anyone to know the truth.
I can't stay quiet about this anymore. It's destroyed my health.
We're pushed into silence.
Hi, I'm Tim Che, the director and writer of The Firing Squad. You can participate in our Million Souls campaign, inviting everyone you know to Jesus. Listen, we all face some kind of firing squad in our lives, and yet faith in the Lord, that challenge can lead us to true peace in this insane world. We can't do it without you. We're competing with big Hollywood movies, so we're relying on your voice to spread the word. Thank you again for supporting this important movie.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
She's in quite a perilous situation, but she's completely strong and serene, and she's actually meditating. It was very, very well liked because no matter what culture or what sort of walk